Alright, what's up guys? So, Fact Faction has uploaded a video titled 5 Mysterious Unsolved Cases Involving Celebrities. I think one that's going to be talked on, I can't think of those two actors' name, but I don't want to say an actor's name and then it might, might not be that actor, but it involved two actors and I think, was she an actress? Anyways, it was 3 people on a boat. The girl ended up dead. Nobody knows how. That's one of those situations where I'm like, how is that? Because I'm like, look, bruh, what happened in that situation? I'm like, that's something where I would not. I'm just saying, like, if they talk on it, I definitely make sure to point it out. But if there is ever a time where those two actors invite me onto a boat ride, no, unless it's like a cruise ship and we're surrounded by people, because I'm like, yeah, I'm staying in the crowd, bruh. I'm not going into any. They were like, oh yeah, come down here, just have a little area to myself. I'm like, no, I'd rather go swim with sharks. I'd rather go find a megalodon. I'm not going anywhere with you guys. So, let's go ahead and, yeah, let's get into this video. Guys, if you haven't, make sure you go subscribe to Fact Faction. Honestly, one of my favorite channels when it comes to these, like, mysteries and unsolved cases and all that stuff. So, I'm saying, like, Fact Faction, it's like, bro, they should either get, like, their own TV network or, like, a show of some sorts. But, yeah, man, because it's entertaining to sit down and watch these videos. So, but anyways, let's go ahead and get into this.
We often feel like we know celebrities as deeply as our friends and family. After all,
I feel like my sister and my mom, how they are with Prince. Like I swear they know more of him than they know of me, and that's life, man. We get like that with some celebrities.
Their daily lives, relationships, and more are frequent fodder for our entertainment. Yet an air of mystery remains. We don't actually know these people. We just know of them. And just like anyone else,
That's
they
true.
can be subject to strange situations, terrifying transgressions, and vicious violations.
Dang.
We'd like to think their elevated social status would ensure that crimes against them get solved, but sometimes they just don't. Today we're discussing 5 unsolved cases that center around celebrities.
Who shot Scott Ruffalo?
In the early 2000s, the Ruffalo brothers, Mark and Scott, seemed to be finally hitting.
That is him. Dang, he looked different. That's crazy.
Right. The pair had moved to Los Angeles as young adults, with Mark pursuing acting and Scott breaking into the hairdressing business. Times were tough in the beginning, and the brothers shared a cheap apartment in the crime-ridden neighborhood of MacArthur Park. As Mark told Men's Journal in 2013, he'd make a giant bowl of tuna pasta, and we'd eat off that all week long.
Wow.
The best of times, the worst of times. But with Mark breaking into Hollywood with lucrative films like 13 Going on 30 and Zodiac, and Scott gaining massive success at top salons in Santa Monica and Beverly Hills, things seemed to have certainly turned around for the two brothers. Scott was well-known and well-liked, and with a swanky condo in Beverly Hills, he was a far cry from his humble beginnings. Shockingly, on December 1st, 2008, Scott was rushed to a local hospital with a gunshot wound to his head, and he succumbed to his injuries a week later on December 8th. He was 39 years old.
Wow.
Shortly after his death, 2 individuals turned themselves into the authorities. 26-year-old Shaha Mishal Adam and her boyfriend, 29-year-old Brian Schofield. Detectives were aware that Adam had been at the scene since surveillance cameras captured her and her boyfriend entering. According to Adam, she came to Scott's condo to pick up the keys to her Range Rover, but then he allegedly began mentioning Russian roulette. Unnerved, Adam left, but heard a shot ring out as she retreated. Why Scott might have been in possession of Adam's car keys is unclear. The police were not fully buying Adam's narrative.
That sounds
To
weird.
press her. She then altered her story, claiming that she witnessed Scott's fatal and self-inflicted gunshot. The sight of him lying on his couch, bleeding, with a gunshot wound to his head and the weapon in his left hand was so overwhelming that she and Schofield fled, vowing to keep the incident to themselves. Adam was initially booked on suspicion of attempted murder and held without bail, but the very next day she was released, claiming that she was present but not responsible for the shooting. As for Schofield, he had a warrant out for an unrelated misdemeanor traffic offense, so Beverly Hills PD was able to hold and question him for a short while. However, his story echoed Adam's, and he was never charged for anything other than his previous traffic violation. The nature of Adam's relationship with Scott and the activities of her boyfriend at the time remain hazy to the public. Some suspect that drugs were involved, and that Adam's visit to Scott's condo that night had nothing to do with a set of car keys. However, Adam's story was not completely implausible. Despite his gregarious nature and popularity, Scott did have a history of playing with firearms in front of friends and struggled with cocaine addiction. His desire for narcotics even landed him in hot water with the law in April of 2002, earning him a felony charge for possession of a controlled substance for sale. After Adam's release from custody, Beverly Hills police labeled Scott's death a suicide until the coroner's report was released. According to that, the trajectory of the bullet was at an angle that would have been impossible to achieve by his own hand. The tragedy was relabeled as a homicide and remains unsolved, though closed by the Beverly Hills Police Department to this day. The key witness in the event was also the only publicly named suspect, Shaha Adam. She was a bit of an enigma herself. Coming from a wealthy Saudi Arabian family, she was technically a member of the royal family, with her grandfather being the well-known Sheikh Kamal Adam, an advisor for both King Faisal and King Khalid. She had been educated in the best schools in Los Angeles, but after her parents' divorce, her life seemed to take a bit of a nosedive. At the time of Scott's slaying, her landlord was attempting to evict her from her own Beverly Hills abode, and she had little to no contact with her family. Several years later, in January 2012, Adam died of an apparent drug overdose, but the public did not learn of her death until over a month later. As for Schofield, there's even less known about him. Other than the traffic ticket Beverly Hills PD held him on back in 2008, there seems to be no further activity from him. He is only mentioned as a peripheral character in the entire chain of events. Was he with Adam when the shooting occurred? Was he in another room or outside of the condo completely? What is he up to today? Unfortunately, we just don't know. There is no prevailing theories,
probably in
and
hiding.
only a web of suspicious circumstances surrounding the shooting of Scott Ruffalo. With Adam deceased, her boyfriend nowhere to be found, and the case closed by the authorities, it doesn't appear that we will be getting answers anytime soon. As for Scott's famous big brother, Mark continues to grieve and hold out hope that the murder will be solved. He states that he deals with the pain of losing Scott by remembering all the good times the pair had together, telling Men's Journal that he is still haunted by guilt over his baby brother's death. Mark stated, "You never get over it, you just get used to it. From here on out, do the best you can to make it count."
Yeah, that situation to me, that don't sound right. And then it's like the story changing up multiple times. That's stuff like that where it's like, if I'm a detective, I'm gonna try to get to the bottom of it, because I'm like, that don't make sense. You said it was this, now you saying this, and then it's stuff like that where it's like, nah. My thing is this, how? Because there's just so many like questions about it where it's like, why would the case close down if they determined that the gunshot was at an angle where it's like that couldn't have been possible to be, it's like self-inflicted and things. But it's just like, man, that's something where I'm like, nah, I want to look into that. I ain't no detective, but I want to look into that myself, because it's like, stuff like that where it's just you can't really ask the girl and stuff, but definitely I imagine, detectives, they ask as many questions as they possibly can, but it's just something where it's all like, you're not going to get in trouble. It's like the boyfriend's not going to do. And the thing is, like, I don't want to make that accusation that the boyfriend did it, but at the same time, it's like, what really happened? Like, it's just when stories change up, that's my go-to question. What really happened? So, yeah, that's crazy, man.
18-year-old Tammy Lynn Leppert seemed to have it all. As a teenager, she was winning beauty pageants left and right, and had already appeared on the front page of CoverGirl magazine. By 1983, the petite blonde Florida girl was fostering a promising acting and modeling career, appearing in films like Scarface and Spring Break. However, something appeared to be amiss. Shortly after filming for Spring Break Wrapped in 1982, Tammy attended a weekend-long party that should have been an enjoyable venture. Instead, when she returned home, she was, quote, a completely different person, according to Wing Flanagan, a longtime friend who lived with her and her mother. The details of what occurred were never discovered, but the young woman informed her mother that she had seen something awful that she was not supposed to see. She went on to be cast in Scarface, but 4 days into shooting, a scene with fake blood caused Tammy so much distress that she quit the film and returned to her mother's home in Rockledge, Florida. Unfortunately, her behavior didn't improve. Tammy became increasingly paranoid, refusing to drink out of any open glasses and only eating food off of other people's plates. By July 1st, 1983, she seemed to be truly off the rails. Physically and verbally attacking Wing, she raced outside, only to have the door locked behind her. Enraged, she pummeled the door with a baseball bat and broke a window before he let her back into the dwelling. Deeply concerned, her mother took her to the doctor, but after 3 days of observation, she seemed cogent with no obvious signs of alcohol or drug use, and her physicians released her. Yet Tammy remained insistent that an unknown he was going to kill her. She reached out to her friend Rick Adams, and the pair met in a church with Tammy weeping and praying through the duration of their time together. When he dropped her off at home, she informed him that she might not see him for some time, and that she loved him. The next day, on July 6th, her friend Keith Roberts came to pick her up at her request. Tammy's mother was worried, and though she neatly dressed in a matching denim top and skirt with flowers, her daughter hadn't combed her hair before she left, which was uncharacteristic. Allegedly, during the drive, Keith and Tammy got into a fight, and she ordered him to drop her off at the Glass Bank building in downtown Cocoa Beach, Florida, only about 5 miles from her mother's home. It's unclear where exactly the pair parted ways, but it seemed that he dropped her off near the Glass Bank building in an Exxon gas station parking lot, right off State Route A1A. Tammy then placed several calls to her aunt's business, a nearby costume shop, but the calls went unanswered since she was out of town. Tammy apparently left an urgent message after each call, but the exact contents of the voicemails are unknown to the public. Tammy was never seen or heard from again. Several theories have flourished over the years. 2 serial killers operating in Florida, Christopher Bernard Wilder and John Brennan Crutchley, were initially considered suspects, but nothing has been discovered to tie her to either of these men, and both are now long dead. Tammy's mother thinks that her daughter witnessed something to do with drug trafficking, and that her knowledge got her killed.
I just thought she had went missing. I didn't really, okay. But yeah, the thing is this, I'm not saying that I know anything, but I'm just saying I feel like at some long extended party where most likely hard drugs and alcohol is being passed out around all over the place, probably somebody, something happened, and then, that's, overall, it just, and stuff like that, I imagine it'll, sober a person up right away, and they, realize what they're looking at, and, stuff like that, I imagine that'd be traumatizing, so, and then, then it's you see some fake version of it, it's I can't relate to that, but I could just, say, there have been times, where if it's something that I, it could be, the thing is this, I could have had a crazy dream or seen some crazy stuff in real life, and then it's if I'm having to reenact that or whatever the situation is, I imagine it's gonna make a person a little bit uncomfortable. So, but anyways,
though that theory too has never been corroborated. Her DNA profile has been compared to quite a few Jane Does, but 40 years later, her remains have never been found. Tammy would now be in her 50s, and her family, particularly her sister Susanna, has vowed to never stop looking for her, saying, "It has been too long not knowing what happened to you. We love you and want to know you are okay." If you know anything about Tammy Lynn Leppert, you can reach out to Detective Thomas Cooper of the Cocoa Beach Police Department at the number on the screen.
Yeah, that's crazy. It's for her to just go missing like that.
Born in 1958 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, 20-year-old Nancy Spungen was drawn to the fast-paced party lifestyle that accompanied the punk rock music scene in the 1970s. A troubled and rebellious youngster who experimented with drugs, Nancy left home for New York City at age 17 with a passion for punk music. She was a groupie and took a particular interest in Johnny Thunder's Heartbreakers, going so far as to follow the band across the Atlantic Ocean to London in 1977. Her cohorts on the scene characterized her as brash, pushy, and obnoxious, earning her the nickname Nauseating Nancy. In the UK, Nancy continued to alienate fellow groupies and band members alike, until she met the bassist for the Sex Pistols, Sid Vicious. In some ways, Sid did not fit the typical mold of a rock icon. He was naturally introverted, and a newcomer to the group after the original bassist, Glenn Matlock, left. Yet in other ways, he was already well initiated. Although Nancy is often blamed for introducing Sid to the hard-partying behaviors of the American punk rockers, Sid was deeply familiar with drugs, and had a bad habit of abusing them prior to his introduction to Nancy. His addiction to heroin was well documented, and caused tension among the other members of the Sex Pistols. Nancy was no help in this arena. She was also a heroin addict, and the pair were a terrible influence on one another. As Lee Childers, the tour manager for the Heartbreakers, said, "She was a junkie, a drug supplier, and an all-around lowlife."
Wow.
Sid's bandmates disliked her so much that she was effectively banned from the group's USA tour in 1978, but that didn't stop the star-crossed lovers from reconnecting. After the band broke up following their final performance in San Francisco, Sid reunited with Nancy and embarked on a solo career with her as his manager. In August 1978, the couple moved into the famed Chelsea Hotel in Manhattan, where they would spend weeks at a time, holed up in their room taking drugs. Friends of the couple noted they would disappear only to resurface after days, and some began to worry that their habit might finally get the better of one or both. On the night of October 11, 1978, Sid was witnessed taking a massive dose of Tuinal, a barbiturate meant to mitigate insomnia. Later that same night, around 2:30 a.m., Nancy asked Rocket's Red Glare, a drug dealer who doubled as a bodyguard for Sid, for some dilaudids, a type of opioid painkiller. Whether or not she took these is unknown. Nothing else was heard from the pair until 7:30 the next morning, when another guest reported hearing a woman moaning in Sid and Nancy's room. 2.5 hours later, an agitated Sid called down to the front desk asking for help. Nancy was found dead in the bathroom with a stab wound to her abdomen. Sid was arrested for her murder and confessed to the crime at first. Later, he recanted, claiming he had been deeply asleep and had no recollection of what had transpired. Sadly, while out on bail several months later, Sid died of a heroin overdose before he could be tried for the slaying. And Nancy's case was never further investigated. The large amount of Tuinal Sid purportedly ingested the night before, as well as his seemingly deep and authentic love for Nancy, made many wonder if he was indeed culpable or even capable of the deed. But if he didn't kill her, then who did? There are two prevailing theories. The first is that it was a botched double suicide. Sid had taken the massive amount of Tuinal to end his life, and Nancy followed with a self-inflicted Shakespearean stab to the stomach. Of course, this sounds like the plot of Romeo and Juliet, and though the pair were troubled, there was no indication that they were prepared to consciously end their own lives. Sid also never claimed that this was the case. The second, and more likely theory, is that Rocket's Red Glare, the pair's dealer, took advantage of Sid's incapacitation and attempted to rob them. A furious Nancy stopped him and earned a hunting knife in her stomach as a reward. Rockets then took the remainder of the cash and left the hotel room, assuming both Sid and Nancy were deceased. There have even been reports of him admitting the crime to fellow partiers at the punk club CBGB's and producing blood-stained dollar bills as proof. No one knows for certain what occurred on the night of October.
Like, well, if I mean, I don't know, because I'm like, the thing is this, I know people might consider it a little silly, but there was the Tupac movie where it was him, and I can't think of the other dude's name, but it was like they had, in the movie they had killed somebody and then was trying to set it up to make it seem like that it was this I think that guy's name was Dennis Quaid, but they made it seem like that he did it. I think that movie is gang related, but anyways, they tried to make it seem like that he did it and stuff, and then they had liquored him up, overall tried to, yeah, and you know, just put it in his head that he did it. And I feel like that could have been the case. Not saying that it was some cops that did it, but I overall think that they're probably looking at it as like, okay, well, you're the only one here at the scene, and you guys is like, you know, doped up off of drugs and stuff. So yeah, it's like, and they probably hearing it from other people that you guys do a lot of drugs. So I think that that's overall what got to his mind, that he's like, he didn't know whether or not he did do it or not. It could have been, I don't know. Like, there's just so many possibilities where it's like, I don't think I don't want to believe that somebody would just randomly do that to themselves. And it's like, you know, it's one of those things where it's like, it's, you know, it's just going to remain an unsolved mystery, because I don't want to say nothing that, you know, that's like, it's my own personal feel. But yeah, but I will say that if this guy is handing out blood-stained money and stuff, and then he's going around telling people that he did it, I think he should, you know, he should get looked into.
October 11th, 1978. But the ill-fated and twisted love story of Sid and Nancy lives on as the stuff of rock and roll legends.
Some crazy stuff, man.
Known as the Golden Girl of British TV, Jill Dando had a warm smile and sunny blonde hair that were well known to British television viewers throughout the 1980s and 90s. Mostly she worked for the BBC, particularly as the face of the programs like Holiday and Crime Watch. On the morning of April 26, 1999, Jill left her fiancé, Dr. Alan Farthing's home in Chiswick, London. CCTV captured Jill shopping in Hammersmith, an area between Farthing's home in Chiswick and her own dwelling in Fulham. After leaving Hammersmith, she proceeded onward to Fulham to check on her house, which she was in the process of selling. Around 11:30 a.m., as Jill was about to unlock her front door, she was grabbed from behind, forced to the ground, and shot once by a 9mm semi-automatic pistol in the left side of her head.
Wow.
Her neighbor, Helen Doble, discovered her body roughly 15 minutes later and called the authorities. Jill was taken to nearby Charing Cross Hospital, where she was pronounced dead on arrival by 1:03 p.m. No one saw the crime occur, and the only visual account authorities were able to obtain came from Jill's next-door neighbor, Richard Hughes, who, upon hearing a gunshot, looked out his window and spied a 40-something, 6-foot-tall white man walking away from Jill's residence. 1 year after her death, a man named Barry George, or Barry Bolsara, was arrested and later tried and convicted for the crime. He had lived about a half-mile from Jill's house and had a history of violent and lewd behavior towards women. He had also been previously arrested in the 1980s.
But yeah, what, like my question is, it's like, what did she do to him? Like,
of Princess Diana's residence at Kensington Palace, armed with 2 knives and a rope. However, the case against him was exceedingly thin, and he was subsequently acquitted of Jill's murder in 2008. Since then, the case has remained unsolved. All her romantic partners, both current and former, were cleared, and the idea that a hitman had been hired as revenge for the work she did on her show Crime Watch was also debunked by the police. There are a few other theories, most notably the idea that a Serbian hitman went after Jill. At the time, the Yugoslav wars were raging in the Balkans, and the West was largely supportive of Kosovo over Serbia. Jill had just appeared on a BBC Kosovo appeal, so it is plausible that killing her would be seen as a kind of retribution against the West from Serbia. Other ideas, like an unhinged fan coming after her, or that she was mistaken for someone else, have been floated over the years, but nothing substantial has come from it. Her murder remains open, and Metropolitan Police have stated that should any new information come to light, it will be thoroughly investigated.
yeah, I'm thinking like a crazy fan had did some stuff, but I don't know, like that's, you know, it could have been somebody that, you know, that thinking of the Crime Watch show, and it's like, yeah, it's just some person out there, you know, with an extensive just, you know, crime sheet and stuff. Like, yeah, they just mad that she's out here doing good. And then it's just, yeah, it's stuff like that. It's like, bro, then it's like, live a proper good life. It's like, so you don't have to like go out and be mad about her talking about crimes and stuff. So yeah, that's weird, man. I think I heard about this, the Brittany Murphy
Best known
case.
for starring in beloved films like Clueless, 8 Mile, and Uptown Girls, Brittany Murphy was a Hollywood regular with a ton of talent and a devoted fan base. In 2007, after a brief romance, she tied the knot with Simon Monjack, a British-born writer and director who had known Britney since her teenage years. 7 years her senior, he always seemed to have some kind of scandal or controversy swirling around him. He was arrested for credit card fraud, evicted from 4 different homes, and generally seen by those around
That's
Britney
weird.
as a con artist. Her friends were suspicious of Simon's motives when it came to Britney, wondering if they wed so quickly for legal reasons. After all, he had just spent several days in jail in February 2007 because his visa to the United States had expired. Simon was controlling, insisting that he alone should manage Britney and her career. And shortly after their nuptials, she fired her entire professional team. As Cynthia Hill, the director of the documentary What Happened Brittany Murphy, told People magazine, he was a disturbed individual who was used to conning people, and Britney was one of his last victims. In December 2009, in the Hollywood home the couple shared with her mother, Sharon Murphy, Britney collapsed on the floor of the bathroom. She was rushed to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, but unfortunately, it was too late. The beautiful young actress was declared dead at only 32 years old. The cause of death was listed as pneumonia, anemia, and multiple drug intoxication, which was the result of the numerous cold medicines that Britney had ingested in the preceding days. She was likely fighting off some kind of cold or respiratory infection, as the drugs were not illicit ones. It's worth mentioning that though there were no confirmed reports of Britney abusing drugs or alcohol, it was rumored throughout Hollywood that she used heroin and cocaine, with many concerned that she used too many drugs and ate too little food. Her death was ruled accidental, but people were incredibly suspicious, especially when Simon initially refused to have an autopsy performed. Although he later allowed it, he justified his early hesitation to Larry King in an interview, stating,
pristine body that was curvy in all the right places
was
and
in a
the
car
skin like
accident.
silk. And how could I say in front of her mother, cut her up?
skepticism continued to follow Simon, with reports that he had moved on to Britney's mother, of all people, and was now sharing a bed with her. Creepy photographs of the two looking like a grieving couple rather than a mother and a son-in-law didn't do much to help their case. However, less than a year after Britney's untimely demise, Simon was discovered dead in the same home on May 23rd, 2010. His cause of death was also listed as pneumonia and anemia. Naturally, this seemed fishy to many, and 2 main theories surfaced. Firstly, that the pair were exposed to toxic mold in their own home. At first, Sharon disagreed with this idea, but she later filed a malpractice suit against her former lawyers, alleging that they had encouraged her to accept a settlement from the builders of the home rather than sue them for Britney's wrongful death. It appeared that Sharon believed they knew about defects in the home that could have contributed to her daughter's passing. However, no mold spores were recovered in either Simon or Britney's bodies. An environmental review was conducted on the property, but the results of it are unknown at this time. The second theory is that either Sharon or Simon poisoned Britney over a long period of time. Now, obviously, since Simon is dead, it is not too likely that he was the perpetrator. Her hair was found to contain high levels of heavy metals, which some believe to be consistent with poisoning, but it has since been revealed that this was the result of hair dyes and hairsprays, and the chemicals were never absorbed into her bloodstream. In fact, in the days prior to her death, Britney had changed her hair color. Even though the deaths of Britney and Simon are strange, and Simon was
that
certainly
is
no
crazy.
angel, there is little concrete evidence beyond pure speculation to suggest foul play at this time. Following Simon's death, it was revealed that he had 2 secret children by 2 different women, and that he was wiring huge amounts of money overseas to pay off some kind of legal settlement. The circumstances of said settlement remain a mystery to the public. He also sunk roughly $3 million of Britney's money into fraudulent investments, non-existent real estate, and fake jewelry. The Los Angeles County coroner remains adamant in his decision that her death was the result of untreated pneumonia, and she likely would have lived if she had sought medical attention earlier in her illness. Britney is remembered for her kindness and generosity, and is missed by fans and friends alike.
Yeah, I remember when they announced when she passed away. Like, I think because she did a movie with Ashton Kutcher, and what was the name of it? It's Fam, I suck with names. But anyways, no, I just remember like seeing her from time to time in movies, and then when they had talked on her passing, I was like, oh, wait a second, I've seen her before and stuff. And so yeah, that was something where I think I have heard, like, you know, her case has been kind of like, you know, weird and stuff, like on how she passed. But yeah, it's just, you know, it's one of those things where it's just, you know, I be around the right people, I guess. Like, that's the best advice I could give out. In a situation similar to this, and if somebody sees or knows, or if you're in this situation, yeah, just be around the right people, I guess. But anyways.
What celebrity mystery sends you falling down a rabbit hole? Did we miss your favorite case? As always, we'd love to hear you sound off in the comments below. Be sure to like and subscribe. And
like
thanks
the video,
for watching.
yeah. Yeah, I thought they would have talked on the, that video was crazy. But anyways, yeah, I thought they had talked on that, one situation. I want to see, it was like, actress that died on boat with 2 actors. Is it Natalie Wood? Natalie Wood? I think this is it. Is this the story? Hold on. Natalie Wood, death. Senator Christopher, dang, it was Christopher Walken, because I remember, I think I was like, I knew it was somebody like Christopher, but I was like, and then I was thinking his name, and then I was like, dang, so there's like, what, co-star, is it even, so, oh, I think it was just him, and then it was somebody, some other, like, the captain of the boat or something, but yeah, I was like, that situation, I was like, I don't know about that. And I was like, how somebody just end up dead on the boat and nobody don't know how. So, yeah, that's one of those things, man, where it's just, you know, it's unfortunate people, they get just caught up in just, you know, sucky situations with people. And that's what I was saying. It's like, you know, surround yourself with the right people so you don't have to go through no stuff like that. It's just unfortunate, man. But anyways, yeah, guys, make sure y'all go subscribe to Fact Faction. Stay tuned for some more videos, and peace.